One.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to this special edition of Cream City Cast, CreamCityCentral.com's own weekly podcast discussing the latest Milwaukee Bucks takes and what's going on in the vibrant city of Milwaukee. Our podcast is brought to you by our great friends over at ShepherdExpress.com. I'm Andrew Goodman, co-hosting as always with Dylan Piccolo, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by CreamCityCentral.com's editor-in-chief, Al Juno. Thanks for being on here tonight, guys.
Absolutely, anytime.
Pleasure to be here.
Good win for the Bucks tonight, minus a Joel Embiid-less 76ers 107-95. Al, I wanted to get your thoughts on tonight's game, if you saw anything different from previous weeks from when Jason Kidd was still coaching.
I really just think the most impressive thing to me is that the team seems to be moving the ball better. And from like a coaching perspective, I really like when Coach Prunty chooses to use his timeouts. You really see him use his timeouts to break up runs, and he really seems to call them at impactful times and key pivot points in the game. And I think that's kind of a nuance of coaching that you don't really pick up on unless you're really looking for it. Just you see him go to timeout, and then you see the team kind of come out looking a lot stronger and more cohesive. I feel like the ball movement has been better, and just the more conservative defense is really paying off.
Yeah, and something else that stands out to me is the fact that Joe Prunty, he's very active on the sideline during the game. He'll be sitting down, but he'll also be pacing back and forth on the sideline. I like how he gets on officials for missed calls and stuff that the Bucks want called on their end, and also how he was over on the bench a few times talking to the Bucks players that were sitting on the bench, explaining to them where they needed to be and what someone was doing wrong and in order to correct what was going on. So I really like that hands-on cohesiveness that Joe Prunty is showing.
Yeah, I think that it also appears that the team's rallying around Prunty, especially fresh off of the firing. A lot of interim coaches, sometimes they don't really have the same message in the locker room. And, obviously you've been with Jason Kidd for three years now. So you got to take a look at it like that. What's the message that Prunty's bringing every day, and are the guys responding to it? And it appears, they've won three in a row. So you got to think, well, I guess this message is actually sticking. And it appears that, like you said, Al, about the timeouts, the team's responding well after timeouts. They're not taking, the opposition's runs, and they're not just letting it just knock them down. They're showing a little fight, as they did today, as they got down against the 76ers pretty quickly in the game, and then they came back.
Yeah, another interesting thing from this game was Eric Bledsoe. He only played 2 minutes tonight. I know there's been speculation that he's being bothered by some ankle soreness, but in his 2 minutes, he looked pretty awful, even though he did hit a mid-range jump shot. But on the defensive end, he looked a lot slower than he's used to.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing I'm not going to get that worked up about. It's a long season and guys get a little banged up. If he had came back in after that, then maybe I would have read a little more into it. But if he doesn't have it tonight, he doesn't have it tonight. He's a guy who's dealt with some leg issues throughout his career, so it's better to play it safe than sorry.
Yeah, and luckily the Bucks were able to escape with a victory again, 107-95 over the Joel Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers. And we all know, elephant in the room, Jabari Parker making his much-anticipated return this Friday against the New York Knicks. What is he going to bring to the table for the Bucks?
I'm not quite sure. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he brings and how he's used. I know some people think he's going to go right back into the starting lineup, and I'm not so sure about that, but I think he'd be really nice off the bench just to give us some scoring, but it's going to definitely take him a few games to get back in rhythm.
Yeah, I'd say about probably like until the All-Star break. He's going to be on the bench. It'll be nice that he's actually going to play a little bit before the All-Star break, so he does get some additional rest after kind of getting his legs underneath him in the first couple games against the Knicks and such as we go on until the All-Star break. But I think using him almost a little sparingly will kind of benefit him in the long run, rather than try to insert him, like Al said, into the starting lineup right away. Let him come off the bench, let him get his feet wet. You know what I mean? Don't rely on him too much at this point until we know like what he's really going to be able to do on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, you don't want to put the world on him. You don't want to have him shoulder the load. You want to ease him back in there, get him 100%. It will take a while, but for me, what he needs to bring, we all know he's uber talented offensively, but just the rebounding factor, getting someone else that can grab 5 to 6 rebounds a game is really going to help this Bucks team secure defensive rebounds and get out and run.
But I do think that one thing that is really beneficial is that the Bucks are on a little bit of a streak right now and playing well. Like we kind of just talked about with having the world come back on his shoulders. I mean, he's not coming back to a team that has lost 5 in a row, and people are going to be expecting the world at him when he comes back. I mean, I'm sure those expectations will still be high because number 2 pick, and, he averaged 20 a game before going down last year, about a year ago to the day. So, I mean, that's kind of, I think, going to be an easier transition for him, is that we are playing well right now, albeit against not as strong as the schedule as we had in the early part of the season. But playing well as of right now is really going to be a nice kind of smoothing, just going to smooth it out, I think, for him when he comes back, as he's not coming into a train wreck.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys, I know the Bucks have been 5 games over 500 earlier this season, but is this the most consistent the Bucks have been all season? Albeit, like you said, they're not playing world beaters, but they're taking care of business, which is something that they haven't done in a long time. So that's certainly refreshing to see.
Yeah, I guess I would say so. They're looking pretty comprehensive on most nights. They're just taking care of business and they're beating the teams that they should beat, and they're doing it pretty convincingly. We haven't had any close games really since Prunty took over. The Suns game was kind of close, but Giannis wasn't really even playing that one.
Yeah, I believe all 4 games that they've won have been 10 plus, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty impressive, Bucks taking care of business. So, Al, did you want to get the mailbag started?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this would be a good time to kind of transition into the Jabari question. So I guess going off the bat, we got one from Jacob Much, or at Too Much JDM on Twitter. And his question is Jabari going to stay in Milwaukee?
Well, I think there's 2 sides of the argument. I mean, people want to think maybe link him to a trade right now, but I think I take it as the Bucks are playing a little bit with house money with Jabari, a restricted free agent who can come back into this season and is going to kind of show you where he's at right now. But, unless he plays amazing right away and has a consistent playoff and everything like that, I think teams are still going to be very cautious about really paying up for him with that 2 ACLs. I understand the figure might look big as cap space is raising and the cap limits raising. So I think that the Bucks will match the offer because I think they're tied with Jabari just because drafting him and, the whole own the future thing with Giannis. You've never really seen him and Chris Middleton and Giannis all together at once. So I think they're going to kind of wait out the season and probably match any deal that he receives. They're not going to offer him anything. They're going to wait to see what everyone else has to offer, I think, first.
Yeah, for me, I would love to see him stay in Milwaukee, but, of course he's going to have to prove himself. This is his contract year. He's playing for something, and, Jabari Parker is going to bring it whenever he's on the floor. But for me, there's a certain limit as to what I'm willing to pay him in order to keep him around in Milwaukee. Granted, this could go both ways, and, they do match or sign him to an extension and he ends up being an all-star caliber player, which he expects him to be. But then again, God forbid something else happened to that knee. You're looking at a situation where the Bucks are in a financial crisis, and this could be a decision that cripples their franchise for the next, 2-3 years. So it's certainly interesting. My preference would obviously for him to stay in Milwaukee, but for me, at some point, there's just a line in the sand that if another team offers him a pretty penny, that I think the Bucks might be better off looking somewhere else.
I guess for me, I think he's 100% going to stay. I don't know if that's the right move, but I think he definitely will. And I actually think optics-wise, the Bucks won't even let him get another offer. I think the Bucks will lock him up early. When the Bucks have had restricted free agents in the past, like Chris Middleton, Miles Plumlee. Sorry, all the Plumlees are blurring together at this point. And Tony Snell. They took care of business with all 3 of those guys right away. They did not let another team offer. Even though Miles took a while to negotiate, I can't remember the last time the Bucks have actually matched an offer sheet or let it get to that point. But moving on to the next question about Jabari, This one comes from Ryan Frankie, and we kind of already covered that one. How will Parker fit into the rotation when he comes back? I guess I personally expect him to be coming off the bench. I think that would be the best role for him this season, and it's something we could kind of reevaluate in the offseason just because of where he's at with coming back from a really serious knee injury. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I think that it's kind of, like I said this in previous podcasts, I think that it gives the Bucks a lot more flexibility. Just having Parker in the lineup, depending on who you play against. If Cleveland throws out their small ball lineup, for example, you could have Jabari play the 4 in a starting lineup and have Giannis play the 5. I mean, I think it's just really, this opens up worlds of possibilities for the Bucks, especially because of Jabari's just his ability to score in the half court. I think I agree with you that he will be off the bench at least in the immediate future, probably month to the end of the season. But I think it does give Prunty some flexibility, at least with his matchups. And, maybe it's not starting wise for Jabari, but maybe it's he gets more minutes one game than he gets another. I don't know. But I think he will play, obviously, like a well-rounded amount of minutes, but it could just be ever so slightly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm sure the Bucks are going to want to keep him around the 12 to 15-minute mark per game and gradually increase it from there. But for the Bucks to optimize their potential, obviously it would be ideal to get Jabari Parker back into the starting lineup where you can go small, which really maximizes your opportunities to get on run and transition, which is what the Bucks are amazing at. And they're a completely different team when they're able to grab defensive rebounds or get turnovers and leak out in transition. So once you eventually work Jabari Parker back into the starting lineup, I think you're going to start to see a different Bucks team and how they play.
Yeah, I totally agree. That Giannis Jabari fast break, all those highlights from the beginning of last year were just something else, and I can't wait to get that back.
Swoons.
Yeah, exactly. So our next questions are kind of more about moves centered around Jabari. We got one from Bobby Riddell. Should we trade Jabari for DeAndre? And I assume that's DeAndre Jordan. And then we got one from Zach Herring, and that is, should the Bucks look to move Jabari for a center and or draft pick? I kind of said my thoughts on this earlier. I don't think that we would make a move for Jabari. I'm also not sure what team would trade a good center, like somebody who's better, objectively better than John Henson, for Jabari Parker at this stage of his career, because you're really getting 3 months of him coming off of an ACL tear, and then after that, you're getting the right to pay him a lot of money if he looks good, and it's just kind of a scary trade to make if you're the other team.
Yeah, any move for Jabari Parker really doesn't make sense for the Bucks and or the team that's taking on, his looming contract. I don't want the Bucks to trade Jabari Parker just because, let's say you do trade him for DeAndre Jordan. Well, now you're looking to pay DeAndre Jordan more than you probably would have had to pay for Jabari Parker. And you also risk him walking since this is he's on an expiring contract. So I do think any trade really is a lose-lose situation. So I think the Bucks would want to avoid that on all fronts for sure.
I'll just keep it short and sweet. No.
No for me.
Just a hard pass. But I think DeAndre will be traded. I mean, if you can look at foreshadow with the Clippers with trading Blake Griffin today to the Pistons. I mean, it appears that they're going to trade DeAndre. I mean, why not just blow the whole thing up at that point? Don't you think?
Yeah, you would think at least, but
NBA is weird.
We'll see. I guess one of the Woj tweets said that they want to try and stay competitive, so I don't really know what that means. I think they should tank, but that's really just my opinion.
Let's just move them to Seattle.
Yeah.
Could be nice.
So, next question we got is kind of another Jabari question, but now we're transitioning into some off-season things. If we don't sign Jabari this summer, what is our biggest need, and how do we use that money? And this one comes from Adam Shack Gruet. And then we also have a question from Luke Stevenson. What kind of player could we get this offseason that would play well with Giannis? And I guess just to get us started, I want to make a note on our cap situation. I believe even if we don't sign Jabari, we are very close to the cap, so we would not be able to really make a big money signing. It's not like not signing Jabari for $15 million means that we have $15 million in space. It's really
we'd be going
we're just
over
further under the luxury tax.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question exactly just because of that. because if we don't sign Jabari, I mean, we don't have that money, and that's another reason why I really would like to re-sign Jabari is that, you know, you kind of look at this team without Jabari, and where are we? Okay, we're sixth or fifth right now. I mean, in a very, very, very tight race. It's from 3 to 8 in the Eastern Conference, and not many teams are going to get a jump like Jabari Parker is going to give you. It's like almost getting an off-season deadline trade, but you're not getting rid of anything if you think about it. So it's an addition you got to take on, and I think honestly it'll work because we've seen it work before, and especially with Jabari. I mean, I can't speak for it, but last time when he came back from the ACL injury, his jump shooting increased very much so. I believe it was 36% from three. And if that can stay about the same in the half court, I think that's the perfect fit for Giannis. And I think that's what John Hammond envisioned when he drafted Jabari as a perfect place setting for Giannis.
Yeah, and that's why the Bucks really coined this "own the future" motto, because it's really what John Hammond envisioned. You play Giannis and Jabari on a nightly basis, but if Jabari does walk, I don't think the Bucks would have enough room for this. But if they can somehow pull like a rabbit out of their hat and sign Clint Capella from the Houston Rockets, I think that would be just an amazing pickup for this team. But granted, that's super not likely to happen.
It's honestly so tough when you look at the cap space, what they can really do. The only things I would really have as like a priority for this summer would be to get like a third string center who's actually good, somebody who can take over for just the current minutes that are going to Marshall Plumlee, that type of thing, but also to just get some shooters and get younger. If Mirza's not coming back, get some shooters that can play the 2 to the 4. But really, this is a Bucks team that has everybody under contract that figures to be an impact player in their postseason rotation, except for Jabari Parker. And that's really the biggest way that they can improve, because you're not going to get somebody with his talent with their current cap situation.
Yeah.
If they did not sign Jabari to an extension, and then they let the following summer Bledsoe would expire, Brogdon would hit restricted free agency, and Mirza Teletovich's contract would come off the books, then you could be looking at some cap space, but we'd be talking about going into next year with a lot of uncertainty around the roster and just a lot of stuff that you would have to tie up at that point.
Yeah, that's the stuff you want to avoid.
Yeah. So when I have to look at guys that I think can make an impact, it would be more guys who are expiring that are okay now. Maybe Avery Bradley plays his price down enough where he might want to take a 1-year deal to try and rebuild his value, and that's kind of something that the Bucks could look at, but I don't think his value will be that low.
I like Rudy Gay. I've always liked Rudy Gay. He's not really getting that much. I mean, he's playing decently in San Antonio, but he seems like a one-year kind of contract guy at this point. So, I mean, obviously, no, don't have any sources or anything, but I think that could be a pretty good fit for scoring and shooting on the outside.
I would love to bring somebody like him in, whether it be bringing Michael Beasley back or maybe somebody like Tyreek Evans. Yeah. I think Tyreek Evans is actually maybe somebody they could look at the at the midseason trade deadline, just to give him more of a bench impact. I don't know how much the Grizzlies would want for him, but with Mike Conley getting surgery, it looks like they're trying to get worse rather than get better at the deadline.
Did you see that trade? I don't know if it was on Bleacher Report or something, but it was something in regards to Enes and Michael Beasley coming to Milwaukee. I don't remember when I saw that. It was a couple of days. Dude, I love me some Michael Beasley.
Yeah, I just hate Cantor. I would not want him on this team.
That's a big trade-off to get Michael Beasley back and then get someone like a black hole on defense like Enes Kanter. So I think that would be counterproductive. But by all means, if they have a deal in place that could bring back Cool Bees, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if we're transitioning down questions, we got some head coach questions, and then we got a couple of random ones. So we got one from Abigail Kratz. We got a couple that are really identical to this. It's what's our next move with the head coach situation, and who do you think the Bucks should look at? Let me find a few more. We got one from Kyle Ely. Why stay with Prunty if the team wants to go in a different direction? Let's see. Will Trotter asks, what available coach best fits what the Bucks are trying to accomplish? Omar Lara asks, who's going to be the next coach? Jonah Luddenquam, that's a tough last name to pronounce, says, who do you see as the top candidate for the Bucks head coaching position next year? And Scott Snyder asks, with the firing of Jason Kidd, will Giannis be playing to help Joe Prunty keep his job? So we got a lot of different questions there, all really centering around this theme of the head coaching position. So I guess I'll toss it to Andrew first. What do the Bucks need to look for in a head coach? Does Prunty have the inside track for this job next year? And who do you want them to take a look at this summer when they interview people?
Well, you know what? If we're speaking right now, it looks like Joe Prunty's outlook as head coach of the Bucks is actually looking pretty good. But, his rise to coaching is sort of like Eric Spoelstra in Miami, where Joe Prunty was the video coordinator, similarly to Eric Spoelstra was in Portland back in 1999. And I like how Joe Prunty has been head coach of the British national team, if that's correct. So he does have a lot of experience, obviously, coaching under Greg Popovich. And, if you look at how the team is playing and, how loose they are, he's really come in and changed this locker room. The Bucks are a completely different team than they were, last week, which is really crazy considering that they've done a 180 that fast. So I think right now you have to give Prunty a look, especially how things are at the end of the season. I think, if you really wanted a clean house, I get that, but we sort of got a diamond in the rough here, it looks like, with Joe Prunty so far. I don't want to jump the gun and say, oh, he's going to be the next head coach of the Bucks, but for right now, I think you're going to certainly have to give him a look with how highly the players speak of him.
How about you, Dylan?
I would have to say that I agree with Andrew at this point. Prunty hasn't really given you a reason to think that he's not capable nor qualified to kind of do this job by himself. But I guess little thing I would say is that, I don't know how much of this is really his system that he's doing. I don't know if next year he changes assistant coaches. I don't know if he tries to put more of his stamp on the team. But I think as of right now, he's doing a good job. Couple names to throw out there, because who doesn't love great speculation?
That's what we're here for.
Yep. I don't know. I've heard some people talk about Mark Jackson. I know having a coach that's been fired before isn't really a greatest thing. But if you think about why he got fired from Golden State, is because offensively they just weren't sound. Defensively, they were really, really good under Mark Jackson. And he kind of changed the defensive culture. And I kind of look at the Bucks and I think, okay, well, they can score. They'd kind of know how to do that. Their offense is not great, but it's pretty good. But their defense at times can be really lackluster and pretty questionable. So maybe Mark Jackson's the fit to come and make that defensive influence on the team. Or Prunty's really good still. I mean, Van Gundy, there's a lot of names that you could throw out there, and I think that this is probably going to be the best job of the offseason, so they'll definitely have their pick.
I think it's incredibly interesting. I think we really have no idea where the Bucks are going to go, and we haven't been in a situation where the Milwaukee job is particularly desirable. I think people forget that it's not so long ago that we had Scott Skiles, Jim Boylan, Larry Drew, and Jason Kidd all within a span of about 2 years. And we've really come a long way towards where people are going to be looking at this job and say, yeah, that's something I want. You get to coach one of the best players in the world. It's a playoff team. They had a lot of success last year. I think personally for me, Prunty would have to win 47 to 48 games, which is kind of tough with how they started off. And then he would also have to win a playoff series and then probably look competitive in the next one. I just think that the odds are kind of stacked against him, kind of contrary to popular belief, or at least on this podcast, just because he has those ties to Jason Kidd. I think they would have preferred to clean the house, but they know it's almost impossible to get a coach in mid-season, and it would probably have resulted in a bad short term as a result. So I actually really like kind of the points you made about Mark Jackson. I did not think that Mark Jackson should have been fired. Obviously, in hindsight, the Warriors made the correct decision, but it's kind of like what you were saying. Mark Jackson instilled that defensive culture, and this Bucks team is going to be good on offense almost no matter what. And there's no reason to think that Mark Jackson hasn't evolved as a coach with all the basketball he watches since then. I would worry a little bit about his personality. The dude has a really strong personality. And if we actually see John Horst lead this coaching search, I don't think he's going to bring in somebody as similar in personality to Jason Kidd. Although Mark Jackson, I think he gets a bad rep when people kind of compare him to Jason Kidd, because Milwaukee had been an okay franchise before Jason Kidd got there, and they're going to be fine after he's gone. Oakland and the Warriors, they hadn't done anything before Mark Jackson got there. I think they have a title in the 70s, but they really hadn't been relevant nationally. I guess you can say all these same things about the Bucks, but that core that they have now, they didn't accomplish anything before Jackson got there. Most of those guys hadn't done anything in their careers. Mark Jackson steps in and they become a really good defense, and they win a playoff series against a higher seeded team, and they look competitive in the next round against the Spurs. Then the next year he plays the Clippers, doesn't go well, and then he loses his job. I don't think he would be in my top 3 coaching candidates. I have a couple of college coaches I would be really interested in looking at and trying to find the next Brad Stevens. I would look at Jay Wright of Villanova, Chris Mack of Xavier, and Greg Marshall at Wichita. Really, I would look for guys who seem to get more out of players than the players should perhaps get, kind of looking at where these guys were recruited and what the results kind of tend to be. That's kind of what I would look at for colleges. I think that Prunty really fits the bill of what you would look at if you're looking at an assistant, because he's had this experience under a lot of the top coaches. I would also be very interested in Ettore Messina, who's currently the lead assistant for the Spurs. He's a really popular name. I know that a lot of people throw out Becky Hammond too, think she's a great basketball mind. I'm just not sure that Milwaukee should be the team to take that leap, just because we really don't it's just a lot of added pressure to have the first head female coach with all the other stuff that we're going through right now. I would almost think it would be a better move for a rebuilding team, and maybe that's where LAC will look to go if Doc Rivers leaves that job. But that's kind of my thoughts on the head coaching search and position.
Well, whoever the Bucks are going to hire, this is going to be the guy. This is going to be the coach, for the next 3-4 years. This is going to be the coach that takes the Bucks to the next level. So this is a franchise-altering decision. So this is huge, obviously.
Yeah,
I think. What about? I know you were talking about guys that get a lot of their players. What about Tony Bennett from Virginia, Wisconsin ties? I mean, he definitely gets a lot out of his players. Malcolm Brogdon connection there too. I mean, definitely someone that could fit the bill.
I think Bennett's a great coach. I'm a little worried that his success in college is a little gimmicky based on how much he gets out of players and the systems he run. I don't really have a lot to base that on. I'm not a strong X's and O's guys, but that's just kind of the impression that I get.
No problem. Just wanted to get your thoughts.
Absolutely. And I guess we can just work our way through some of these random questions going forward from here. I thought this was kind of an interesting one. It comes from Blake Bartoshevich. He says, who's surprised you most on the Bucks in the last 5 years? Chris Middleton or Giannis?
Well,
probably. Dang, that's actually a really good question. I mean,
the more you think about it, the more confusing I think it gets. Like, it's almost it just kind of goes around in your head.
There's some merit to both, I think. I mean, Chris Middleton just kind of, I guess both of them, when you look at how he acquired them. I mean, Giannis, we did draft with the first round pick, and that pick, albeit was number 15, it was built on potential of being great. When you look at Chris Middleton, on the other hand, I can't really talk about or I don't really know about what they thought about him when they acquired him, but he was really just a throw-in in the deal with Detroit for, when Brandon Knight came over. So I think probably I would say Chris Middleton, just because we really didn't have that much invested in him personally, I would say, rather than Giannis. We did kind of invest a first-round pick into him, and that's kind of, I guess in my opinion, worth more.
Absolutely. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, for most of I'm a big Middleton guy, and like you said, he was figured just to be, a throw-in for the Brandon Jennings, Brandon Knight swap. But, if you look at it now, it's like the Bucks have won the lottery. He came in his first year when the Bucks were 15-67, however bad they were. And, he was Giannis was still learning, but he was one of the big bright spots on the team, average career high in points. And year after year, you saw his dedication and his craft to his game. He took it to the next level and has improved every single season. He's being rewarded this year by playing at a fringe. I think it's safe to call him a fringe all-star with the way he's played this season.
Oh, 100%, yeah. So I guess the next question we got to answer is from Will Trotter again, and it's what's Bango's favorite color? I think the popular answer here would be green, but I'm pretty sure it's cream.
Probably. I'd go with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Looked pretty fresh in that jersey.
Wait,
tonight,
so where are we putting Bango in terms of on the Mount Rushmore of mascots? Because let's be honest here, he's got to be one of the GOATs for mascots.
Yeah, he's up there with Benny the Bull. I know the Bucks had that promotion so you could come see Benny the Bull because that's what you come to Bulls games for these days.
He's a funny one.
A sleeper NBA mascot would have to be the Phoenix Suns gorilla. Also, I think if there was a mascot combine, I think he would test well in all the different tests and all that stuff.
The Pelicans mascot is also terrifying, and they have that cake baby thing too. So
it's just horrible. Whoever thought of that would be good publicity.
So next question we got: who do you feel would be the best fit at center for the Bucks? And honestly, the answer to this question is so complicated because I don't know if that type of player is in the NBA right now. Ideally, I would like somebody that can shoot threes and protect the rim and rebound. And I guess kind of somebody like Miles Turner would fit the bill. If we have to look at somebody we can actually get in free agency, I don't know who that guy is. I think DeAndre Jordan's fine, but I don't think he's the ideal candidate by any means. And a lot of the guys who can shoot can't rebound, so it's kind of this double-edged sword where you get one or you get the other.
If I had to pick one dream center, it would be Nikola Jokic from the Nuggets. Would be a pretty perfect fit, I think, in my opinion. Can shoot, can distribute, and can rebound. I mean, he can really do it all, honestly. And I'm not just trying to be cliche. He is a fantastic center, especially when no one really assumed that he was going to be very good. He can really, really do it all, and I only say that because he's my center in fantasy basketball.
I'll have to roll with Capella on this one, but the unlikelihood of him coming to Milwaukee is so great that, for me, the center of the Bucks' future is probably going to be Giannis. If we're talking terms of small ball, and if Jabari Parker pans out, you're probably looking at Giannis playing the 5. Or playing pretty much every position 1 through 5.
I'm really worried about that in terms of durability. I think it's exhausting. I think, we kind of saw Boogie. The Achilles injury is kind of something you get from being overplayed and stuff like that and just being counted on to play too many minutes each night. And with a frame like Giannis's, he's not carrying as much weight as Boogie is, but I don't think I want to play him at center for more than 10 minutes in the regular season, and even 10 minutes is a lot. But the game kind of changes so quickly. I was listening to Dunked On today, and they were talking about how the Nets run a Rondae Hollis-Jefferson lineup at center, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is about 5 inches shorter than Giannis and maybe 3 or 4 inches shorter wingspan too. So you never really know how the NBA is going to look in 2 years, and everything I just said could look very silly.
Yeah, it's ever changing. It's crazy.
It's something else entirely. This is another question along a similar line. What would you be willing to give up, or how much is too much to give up for a decent post? And this comes to us from Cody. We're going to go with L. I cannot pronounce that one. Cody L.
Well, I would like the Bucks to take a look at Ed Davis from Portland, who's a solid rebounder and a solid rim protector. I think that would be a solid guy for the Bucks. But in terms of giving up assets, I'm not really such a big fan of that. So I don't think you're going to get a good post player. Obviously, the Bucks are going to have to part with either, Middleton, Jabari, or Malcolm Brogdon, first-round pick or something like that. And I think that's just what you want to avoid. Yeah,
in today's NBA, where the center position is so devalued, if we can't get it for something if we can get a really impactful guy, I think I would give up Thon, and maybe I don't even think there's a guy I would give up Brogdon for that plays center. with Boogie out, maybe. Yeah, anything I'm going to say would sound silly because there's like 3 really good centers in the NBA right now, and they're all basically untradeable. And everybody else is kind of too old. Like if Marc Gasol was 3 years younger, yeah, I would give up Brogdon for him, but he's not. So I don't really know. I don't know. How about you, Dylan?
That's the thing. We really don't have anything to give up for a good center that I want to get rid of. I would say that, we don't have our first round pick this year. I don't think you can trade 2 first round picks in a row. I believe that's how it works.
Which makes the trade with Phoenix really tricky because the pick is protected kind of weird for 3 years. So the first one we could really trade, I believe, is 2022. Or maybe it's 2021. It's something like that.
Yeah, because you don't know like if you're going to be able to trade it based on your record. I mean, and honestly, like I think John Henson does pretty well in the center position. I think he gets a lot of scrutiny because under Kidd, like his pick and roll coverages, many times he was caught in no man's land. But obviously, they need like a big body down there where they can actually like he can get rebounds because against any good center in the NBA, Thonmaker and John Henson are going to get thrown around like they do when like they play like Dwight or Hassan Whiteside. They always have monster games, points and rebounds because they physically just can't match up with them. So my question kind of going off of that is that do you want to try to combat that or do you want to try to maybe do something that Andrew said about the small ball and try to beat them by being faster than them? Because I think that's where the more likelihood should probably be. I would rather almost do that than try to give up to get a center. I mean, if you already have the pieces on your roster, but you're just not playing them right.
And I think that's kind of the problem with all this talk about centers and all this focus on centers. If you really want to beat the Bucks by playing down to your center, you're going to do it in a very boring brand of basketball, and you're going to force a guy like Dwight Howard to take way more shots than he's comfortable with.
Right.
Like, will he have one of his better games of the season against you? Yeah. Will it be the reason you lose? Probably not. Dwight Howard, just no center in the NBA really, especially with Boogie out, has the ability to just punish you in the post game after game after game. I think the matchup with the Timberwolves, I think we have one coming up, will be kind of interesting because I would consider Towns to be one of the more unstoppable guys in the post.
Yeah, absolutely.
He gave us fits last time we played him.
He's good. I mean, it'll be tough, definitely, to stop him. But I guess that's kind of like one of my bigger things is like with NBA teams in general is, you try to all do this. Whoever you try to all do it the same way, and it takes a team like the Warriors to say, "Well, hold up, you don't have to do it like this." There's other ways where you can win, and I think teams sometimes need to look down those avenues a little bit more so than trying to necessarily match up or fix another team. Just find a different way to beat them.
Absolutely.
Especially with the Bucks with cap space. I mean, you're not going to attract the same players as like Cleveland or Boston or anything like that. So why beat them? Why try to beat them in their own game when you're going to lose?
Yeah. I think we got about 3 questions left. This one comes to us from Brewers 2018 World Series parade planner. And he asks, after seeing Wilson look good with the Herd, what does he need to improve the most to translate that success into the NBA? I think this one's kind of easy. I think he's got the game on offense. I think he just needs to rebound. If he can't rebound, he's unplayable defensively because he can only really play the 4 position. And with the Bucks' deficiencies at center, you need a guy who can rebound.
Yeah, he does look lost at times defensively when he's in the game, but albeit he really hasn't played much this season. But I think it's good that he gets his run in at the Herd for sure. And we saw him knock down a 3, which was cool against who was it? The Nets the other day. So that was nice to watch. He needed that one to go in. He's been playing horribly when he has been in the game.
I think it's a matter of DJ Wilson just playing. I mean, he kind of was drafted based on his performance in the Big Ten tournament and in the NCAA tournament last year. He never really has had a prominent role, even at Michigan in his first 2 seasons. He didn't really play all that much or necessarily play all that well. So it's kind of it is just basically a developmental pick at this point. You don't really know what he's going to offer you. I mean, he absolutely has the tools and the length and the scoring to get it, but it's a man's league, and they'll tell you that. Although there's, albeit a bunch of one and dones, these people that are good in the league and are making starting lineups and teams that DJ Wilson's gonna have to go against, they're big grown men and they know how to space and they know how to get the position for rebounds. And like you said, Al. So,
yeah, absolutely. So then we got a question from Alex Cassis, and it's also, is parking in a handicap spot grounds to tase a guy? I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, that's a no for me. That's a very, very big no for me for sure.
Nope, but it's probably sparked him to get 10 points tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Sorry. I didn't see what you did there, and then I got it.
Sorry.
That was pretty good.
Man. Oh.
And we got one from our final question of the day from Donald Kraus. Give me one reason why Delhi gets so many minutes over the likes of Kilpatrick and others. Well, if I have to limit it to one reason, it's because he's a better screener than Sean Kilpatrick. He set some absolutely killer screens tonight. Fantastic play. But it's also really just the fact that he's going to give you more on defense. He fights really hard every single play, and you know what you're going to get from him. And I believe as of late, I don't know if it held up tonight, he's been remarkable in the assist-to-turnover department.
Yeah, Delhi's been pretty good the last few games, but tonight I thought he was excellent, especially in that fourth quarter. He helped keep things together. The 76ers never really went away, but Delhi made a few crazy plays, including some crazy Euro step behind the back finish or over the head finish, whatever you want to call it, over Ben Simmons. I thought that was Ben Simmons passing the torch to Dellavedova,
The Australian torch, obviously.
Exactly.
He's just gritty. I mean, like, people like make fun of him and actually like say, "Oh, he's so gritty," but like, he is. There's no other like way to describe him. He does all the little things. He's the glue guy. I mean, he obviously sometimes makes you so mad where like you just want him off of this team. And I'm not saying that person is me, but I am saying that he is very frustrating sometimes. But it takes a pretty decent basketball eye to actually realize that he does have some worth. And like you said, if you don't know it, if you don't watch screens or you don't watch basketball, you're not going to notice this. So I'd like to challenge all the Delhi haters to maybe take a look at some good screens and some defensive toughness that Delhi brings to the table.
Yeah, if you want to scrap, just meet Dylan and Temecula. If you want to fight over Dellavedova.
All right, was that it?
I think that's all we got to cover for mailbag questions.
Yeah, a lot of good questions.
Yeah. I just want to go over quick another shout out to our sponsors, the Shepherd Express, and we're going to do their Milwaukee Minute. They have a new post posted today on the 29th of January by Kyle Lobner talking about Lorenzo Cain, the addition from the Brewers, and the short-term benefits of free agency. Just kind of gives you another alternative look into Lorenzo Cain and kind of the Brewers' big signings that they've had this year. Should be pretty exciting for them, getting all those new pieces, being pretty close in the NL Central last year. So go check out Kyle's post on the shepherdexpress.com and look under the sports tab, and it should be right there. And thanks again to Shepherd Express for putting our podcast on and always maintaining a great relationship with them over there.
Yeah, it wouldn't be possible without them. The Dodger fan in me really wanted Lorenzo Cain. The Dodgers have been pretty quiet this offseason, unfortunately, but I think Lorenzo Cain and the acquisition of Matt Albers and Christian Yelich, I think that's going to propel the Brewers. They could go pretty far. They could challenge the Dodgers, so we'll see.
Yeah, exciting times to be a Milwaukee sports fan.
Mm-hmm. Well, just want to say once again, thanks for listening. You can check us out on our socials. Al, do you want to drop yours real fast?
Yeah, mine is at Junes for Shiz. And I want to thank everybody for sending in some great questions.
Yep. So you can check Al out there. You can also check out all of our works at creamcitycentral.com. If you want to talk to us specifically, you can talk to me at Dylan Piccolo 35 on Twitter. Love to get more questions for the podcast. Hopefully to get some more periscopes out there after the games to answer some questions also. You can check out Andrew Goodman. Just put out a nice Chris Middleton article out on Cream City Central at Andrew_Goodman3. Once again, thank you for listening to our podcast. You can check us out on SoundCloud. You can check us out on iTunes at Cream City Cast. Love you. Thanks for checking us out. And go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.